Hello everyone, I'm Guillermo from Fortivo Music Channel, and welcome to Music Talks, our video podcast series. These are relatively short interviews with prominent people from all walks of life who don't work in the music industry, but who are in many ways impacted by music. Today we're going to take a deep dive, pun intended, into the musical interests of Gaelin Rosenwaks, who is a marine scientist, explorer, photographer, and filmmaker. She's been on numerous expeditions around the world, exhibited her photos all over the US, and produced films based on her scientific work. Most importantly, just last month, she published this amazing book on her dives with sperm whales in the Caribbean, and it's filled with stunning photos. So in the description below, we'll include links for you to purchase your own copy. Gaelin and I have known each other for years, but this was the first time we actually talked about music. Honestly, I was amazed by how big of an influence music has been in her life. Clearly, she's a huge fan with impeccable, if not eclectic, musical tastes. I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to her insights on music. So, let's get started. Here's my conversation with Gaelin Rosenwaks. Gaelin Rosenwaks, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, this is great because I love looking at your background with all these whale. Oh, this is exciting stuff, and it's this is a topic that you and I normally don't talk about. We've known each other for a long time, but usually we're talking about ocean stuff and diving and your whale work. So I'm really looking forward to this. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. I love music, so it's a good topic.
Well, perfect, because usually we like to start with trying to get a little sense of where your interests lie with music and maybe where they originated. And I understand you come from a musical family, so maybe you can share a little bit of your background in music.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that, music has played a huge role in my life really forever. My dad was a classical violinist growing up. That's how he paid his way through medical school. And then my brother is now a musician. And then my mom always loved music. So she would always have MTV on growing up when they actually played music. So we'd grow up watching music videos. And then she had a record player and we would listen to like all of the good oldies. And in the radio, we would listen to all the music she grew up listening to because she also was super into music. So she introduced us to a lot of things growing up. And then sort of through the progression, as soon as I could start getting into my own music, and growing up in New York was really special because I could go to concerts all the time. So we just got into going to concerts pretty much every night through high school. And, music's always been, and I've met some of my best friends through music. So.
Nice. So did you grow up also listening to LPs and like reading the liner notes and all that stuff when it came out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, everything from vinyl to CD cases to cassettes. In fact, my car still has a cassette player and I'm like
What?
so
No way.
hesitant to I don't want to lose my mixtapes. So yeah, well, I have two cars, but I have an older car that's like my beach car that has a cassette deck in it, which makes me really happy because it's very nostalgic. And there's something about listening to a cassette that's exciting, especially when you're waiting that like 10 seconds at the end for it to flip. But yeah, no, reading liner notes, reading the words, just definitely like is very a tangible experience, much like reading a book. So you like listen and read and do all of that. Look at the artwork too, which I always enjoyed.
So did you used to make mixtapes off radio and wait for the DJ to stop talking?
I didn't do so much off of radio, but definitely some off of radio. It was mostly like CD to tape and then like tape to tape, I feel like. And then occasionally radio stations, especially once I was in like college and my friends were on the radio or had radio shows, I would like tape their shows and things like that. So, yeah.
And you were telling me earlier that you also played different instruments and also sang or sing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when I was growing up, I tried a lot of different instruments. I ended up really liking playing the cello. So I played the cello for a little bit and the piano. Those weren't really my things. And then I started playing the guitar when I was in college, which I enjoyed. And then I've always really liked percussion, but I never really advanced in any of it. It was more just dabbling. But with singing, I really enjoyed it. So I was, in my choruses in high school and junior high and all of that. And then sang with a couple of bands as well, which I know was a big surprise because I'm not generally a performer, unless I'm talking about my work, which then is totally open. But yeah, so I sang with my brother's band because he's a musician, and then I sang with some bands in college whenever they needed a female singer. It was fun.
Any particular genres that you like performing in?
No, I mean, I'll perform in pretty much anything. And we also did some musical theater, which is definitely not my thing at all. Theater and me, it's just not me. But I enjoy going to listen to musical theater. But yeah, I think that my favorite performance I ever did was actually a Halloween show with one of my friends' bands. And I got to sing Tiffany, I Think We're Alone Now, because it was an 80 themes party.
Yes.
And it was like this like electronic version of it. And that was definitely my favorite singing performance of my small musical career.
Well, I feel like as we're talking about you singing, I feel like this background that you've chosen is just setting me up for a perfect question, because it's got you swimming with a whale. So you're listening, I'm assuming, to the whales singing underwater. Did you try singing back?
So it's a sperm whale behind me. So they don't sing. So humpbacks sing, the male humpbacks sing, but sperm whales click. And they make these series of clicks like Morse code, which is their language. And actually, I think that the shutter of my camera, they perceived as me clicking at them. So in a way, it was definitely having a conversation with them, or it certainly felt like it as they were clicking on me. So it's pretty neat.
Interesting.
And yeah, I probably sang to them too, because I'm always humming something. So maybe that's why they found me intriguing. I don't know.
And now I just learned something. I did not realize that the humpback whales are the ones that sing. Are they the only species that sing?
The baleen whale sing, but the humpbacks are the predominant singers, vocalists, and male humpbacks, not the females. That's kind of cool.
Wow. See, now this turned into an educational interview now. Perfect.
We're back to talking about the ocean and ocean exploration. How did we come there? Never happens with me. Yeah. So I think, but then, like orcas and dolphins, they make more of like a whistling noise. So all of the different whale species have different noises, sounds that they make to communicate.
Okay, so now let's get away from the oceans and back to music.
Okay.
But we'll combine the two. So you spend a lot of time on the ocean. I know you like, besides doing your ocean work, you love fishing. And I know you go out on your boat with your mom a lot. When you're out on the ocean, do you take music with you, or do you just kind of listen to the ocean sounds while you're out there?
So generally we just listen to the ocean sounds. It really depends on the day, but generally we don't have music on. That said, our boat has a really nice sound system, so we should listen to music more. But I'd say like when we listen to music, it's usually like reggae to like, it's like summer. So, like an afternoon, you might have a cocktail with you or something. So you're listening to some reggae or something along those lines, like a Caribbean vibe.
And your boat has a cassette tape deck, or no?
No, it's all broadcast on your phone. So yeah, no.
Oh, well, now that you hold up the phone, you said something earlier which I found interesting, which is, you've always taken music with you on your various expeditions, and how that's changed over time when you used to take either tapes or cassettes or CDs, and now it's all digital.
Yeah, well, it actually started, I used to travel a lot with my family growing up. So from the time I was 5 years old, I was on, flights to Asia. So like, 12, 14-hour flights. And so, I guess that's when really music became such an important part, because you needed to entertain yourself. So you didn't have things to watch, right? So it would be like, how many CDs or tapes can you fit in your bag, along with everything else that you might need, like in your little backpack, and obviously, so it would be like, first it would be like little, like maybe you take like 6 tapes and that's what you could fit. And then you'd get like the CD wallets and like flip through them. And so this is obviously a lot when I was a lot younger. And then, then it's sort of changed now to like not needing CDs or tapes, obviously. And like everything is just at your fingertips. You can have your entire music library. And oftentimes now what happens on the ship is you actually don't need to bring any music, because there's like an onboard library of music that people share with each other, which is kind of nice too. So you get to learn new music when you're at sea, spending all of this time. So
yeah, I was smiling while you were saying that, because it was just like everything you just described has been my life. Exactly
Yeah.
the same thing. Although I'm a little bit older than you, I actually remember when I first moved to the United States when I was 6 years old, my dad had an old reel-to-reel tape. Like that even predated, cassette tapes, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, it's so cool, right? Why not?
Well, so now the challenge, it's interesting that now that everything's digital and you can bring so much music with you, or as you said, maybe not even have to bring it with you. Usually with guests, I give them this little homework assignment, right? That if you only had 10 songs to take with you, what 10 songs would you take, kind of as a playlist? Which in today's day and age, maybe is, I don't know if it's a great homework assignment or not, because you're almost rarely limited to 10 songs. But it is an interesting exercise because I think as soon as you get the 10 songs selected, which I want to get to yours in a second, you realize how many you left out, right? How many great songs you left out all of a sudden.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it almost goes to, for me, when I was putting together the list, it went to like, okay, well, what artist would I want to have an album of? And then it's like choosing which song, right? So it's kind of hard. It's like there's certain songs and certain albums that I listen to in different occasions. For example, one song that I put on my list was Wild Child by The Doors, and that's off of the Soft Parade album. So pretty much throughout like my high school and early college and 20s, essentially, I listened whenever I was on a plane and needed to go to sleep. That's the album that I would listen to. It was like the calming album for me. It was the Doors Soft Parade. And I don't really know why, but it just was the one that I listened to. And I just listened to it on repeat as I was trying to sleep. I don't really sleep well on planes. And then I do that. And then that sort of transfer to also when I'm at sea. It's what I would listen to sort of like block out the ship noise and get in that sort of like meditative state, I guess. So yes, I kind of took your assignment and thought about artists more, but it is really hard because for different moments you want different music, right? So
Exactly. Yeah, that's what made this assignment so interesting for everybody who's tackled it. Well, why don't we get into it? I know I kind of put you under a time pressure because even though when I first decided to do this podcast, you were one of the first people on my list. We just decided to do this like 2 days ago, right? So
yeah.
you were kind of under time pressure, but I appreciate you doing it. Do you want to walk me through the list and maybe give
Yeah.
a few thoughts as to why you picked which songs you picked?
Yeah, sure. So I started off with Rancid. I really love ska and punk, and that was the music of my childhood or my teen years. That sort of has kept me going throughout. I grew up basically going to ska and punk shows here in New York at small venues for my entire life. So all of the bands that, nobody knew, but then got huge, that's what we would go and do. And the nice thing was now I think most shows are 21 and up, but then they were all ages or 16 and up, or any show that wasn't, my mom could come, or you could just bring an adult and they'd let you in. They'd draw like X's on your hands. So anyways, the ska and punk is like a really big, and I don't know, that's probably like the most surprising to you knowing me. I think most people are pretty surprised about that background for me, or like that genre of music being probably my favorite.
Yeah,
but
it's exactly when I got the list, that was the first song on the list. I'm like, oh my God, wait, what?
Yeah. And so the reason I chose the song I did Olympia, Washington, is because there's a line in the song that says hanging on the corner of 52nd and Broadway. And that's in New York, and it's about New York. So that little section is about New York City. And if anybody who knows New York City, 52nd and Broadway is the block where a venue called the Roseland Ballroom used to be, which used to have a ton of shows. So it was kind of a bigger venue than most of the shows I'd go to. But one of my best friends and I used to go there all the time, and we'd literally be hanging out on that corner. So I think that, for me, it just kind of like brings me back to that time, and it's just great. And that entire album, Out Comes the Wolves, came out when I was in high school, and it's just an awesome album. So if I needed like a pick-me-up album, or if I'm like driving a long distance or something, I listen to that. And it kind of keeps me going. So that's the story behind that song.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then who doesn't love Pat Benatar and the song Invincible? I think it's like the best song. I think most people know Love is a Battlefield. Well, Invincible sort of has that same tempo, but it just, I think, a better song in my opinion.
Are you able to sing any Pat Benatar song? She's got such a tough voice to emulate.
In the car, yes. I don't think I would do it in public, but yeah, no, I think I actually got to see her in a small acoustic show she played with her husband recently, and it was like a tiny, tiny venue, and it was just amazing. I mean, she's just phenomenal. She's a phenomenal artist. They're phenomenal songwriters, um, and her music are like these anthems, really. But at the end of the day, she's an artist, which I think is really cool. But you can hear it on like in a stadium or in a tiny venue, and it's equally powerful. So so that's another like just great song. And then I went like a little bit more mellow with my next two, and I brought in like the blues and a little bit of swing from the 40s with Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald. Again, how do you choose which songs? That's like impossible. So I chose two of my favorites for Billie Holiday. I chose I Cover the Waterfront, which is just a really moody, beautiful blues song. Just to like get you through, like if it's like a rainy day out or whatever. And then Ella Fitzgerald Sing Me a Swing Song is just probably one of my favorite songs of all time as well. But her whole album. So I ended up like, so I think those two are just, if I need to just chill out when I'm doing something, or, for me, when I'm cooking or baking, if I'm home, that's what I listen to. So yeah, so that's those. And also my grandfather really loved both of them. And so we used to listen to them with him, which sort of brings me back to that. So I don't know if you want me to pause or keep going. But,
No, that's good. Keep going. This is great.
Yeah, and then we sort of channel like the hippie vibe with the Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia. So with the Grateful Dead, I chose Eyes of the World. Again, how do you choose a Grateful Dead song? I grew up listening to the Dead with my mom, and actually went to shows with her in high school because Jerry passed away when I was in high school. So, but the few shows that I could go to when I was old enough, we went, and it was really fun and amazing. So I chose Eyes of the World because it's just a gorgeous song, but it was a tough choice. And then I chose Run for the Roses, which Jerry Garcia mostly covers, mostly sings in his more bluegrassy sets. And I chose that because there's a line in it that says, "I've got a notion we're all at sea." So, and it's just a really beautiful song that most people don't. I think a lot of people know it. They just don't listen to the lyrics. And I think it's just beautiful. And then we already talked about The Doors and Wild Child and that whole Soft Parade album, which I think is just magic. Then I went back to the punk vibe, and I chose a NoFX song. And The Cause, I like all their music. They're a little bit off kilter, but they're great. And I grew up listening to them, seeing them in tiny venues, and now they're obviously like one of the bigger punk bands. But The Cause is about, finding something to fight for. Which I think is kind of what we do in our lives. So that's why I chose that song. And then Operation Ivy, sort of a classic ska punk, California ska punk band. And I just randomly chose that song because they're all so good, but they only have one album, so you can't go wrong with any of their songs. Because then Operation Ivy, some of them became Rancid, and then others went their own way. So they're sort of the precursor to Rancid. And then I ended with Juliana Hatfield, who's just an awesome female songwriter, singer-songwriter, who is famous for a couple of songs that she wrote in the mid 90s. And this song, Feeling Massachusetts, has a great line that says, "Take me to the ocean and leave me there." So that's why I chose her. But she's definitely, like a lot of her music has been sort of throughout my entire life important. And I actually found her music at a concert. She opened for the B-52s back in like 1993 or something. And I was there with my mom and one of my friends from school. And so she opened, and that's how I found a lot of the music that I like today. So those are my 10 songs.
Well, so first of all, it's a great list. And despite the fact that you put it together in 48 hours, probably less than that, I was very impressed. And you obviously put a lot of thought into it, which I really appreciated. It's interesting doing these interviews and asking people to do this, because I find out so much about people when you ask them about their musical interests. And for me, it's been eye-opening to learn about your ska punk background.
Well, my question for you, though, on this is like, how many of these songs did you actually not know? Because some of them are pretty random. So.
Well, and that's the great thing for me. So obviously, this podcast series is part of a greater effort to help music fans discover music that's new to them. And this is a great way of doing it, because even for me, I'm a big music fan, but just like every other music fan, I've got my own preferred genres and artists and things like that. So for every guest that comes on and has 10 songs, I might know 3 or 4 of them, and for me, that means I get to learn about 6 or 7 new ones. So it's been great. And I actually did know Rancid, and I'll tell you why later, but no, this is a great list. Let me ask you this though, because you kind of weaved it in here, in and out, especially as you were talking through your songs. It seems like for you, and maybe for a lot of people, music, you listen to different music in different points in your life and different activities, when you're on the water, when you're cooking, when you're trying to sleep on planes. And actually, I don't know if I had a question there. I was just making an observation, I guess.
Yeah.
That music seems to kind of weave its way into different parts of your life, depending on what you're in the mood for, I guess, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, people always ask, well, what kind of music do you like? And I think that's the hardest question for a true music lover to answer, because I can tell you what I don't like, more easily than I can tell you what I do like, because I like pretty much everything except for gangster rap. So, if you play that, I'm just like, I'm lost. I appreciate that someone thinks that that's art. It's not for me. It doesn't take me somewhere peaceful or positive at all. So, it makes me understand when my dad thinks some of my music is like noise. But generally, I like all kinds of music. And I think it's so hard when someone asks you that question. And even putting together this list, it's like you said, everybody's probably then thinking about 10 other songs, but it's interesting because at different points of your life are punctuated by music, and different songs take you to different places too. You might listen to, a certain song. Like for me, there's a Widespread Panic song, which is not on my list, but it's called Coconuts. And it takes me to different parts of my life where first I remember who introduced me to that song and that band, who was one of my best friends growing up. And then I remember when I first heard it in concert, which was in New Orleans at a Widespread Panic show on Halloween. And then, throughout, I can remember different times I heard that song. So I think the second that you listen to certain songs, it takes you to all of those moments. And hopefully if you're going to see, or you want a playlist that's only taking you to positive places, but at the same time, certain songs will take you to not so positive places. And so I think that that's why, putting these lists together is kind of neat, because it's, you think about all of those like positive stories behind it. Right. So.
Okay. Tying in music to positive stories in your life seems like a great point to end this conversation. So I can't think of a better way to end it. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of your thoughts on this. And I can't wait to see what else you do with your whale projects. But I'm also can't wait to hear you sing. Now I want to hear you sing. So
I wouldn't hold your breath unless you were a sperm whale. I could hold their breath for like a very long time. Then maybe, but no.
All right, Gaelin. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your being on, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Gaelin Rosenwaks. As usual, we'll include all of her information in the description below, as well as her 10-song playlist. Until next time, I'm Guillermo from Fortivo Music Channel, wishing you happy listening.